So Light got what he wanted. The detective is dead, the world is praying to a killer it can't name, and the boy who picked up a notebook is finally the god he swore he'd become. And for a moment, standing in that empty building, it almost looks like a victory. But a god with no equal left has nowhere to put all that certainty. The chair across the table is empty now, and the longer it stays empty, the more you start to see the cost of everything he won. 5 years pass, and in those 5 years, the story shows you the most honest, most devastating thing it has to say about what Light has become. With El gone, there is nothing left in the world strong enough to stand in Kira's way. Crime collapses everywhere. Wars go quiet. Whole nations begin to bend, slowly and silently, toward the will of a killer none of them have ever seen. Because defying him has become the single most dangerous thing a person can do. Light has exactly what he wanted. The world is cleaner, safer, frightened into being good. And he sits at the very center of it, grown now, polished and respected, working calmly from inside the same task force that still believes, after all these years, that it is hunting him. He should be happy. He won. He won completely. But watch him in these years, and you'll see the lies sitting at the heart of everything he built. The boredom is back. That same gray emptiness that started this whole story on the very first night has crept right back into him. Because a god with no equal left has nothing to do but rule. He's surrounded by worshippers, by investigators, by a woman who would die for him at a single word. And he has never in his life been more alone. He misses Elle. He'd never say it, not even to himself in the dark. But the only person who ever made him feel truly alive is the one he murdered with his own careful hands. And in 5 long years, nothing has come close to filling that empty chair across the table. Then the world produces the 2 minds that will finish what Elle started. Because Elle, long before he died, had quietly prepared for the chance that he might lose. In a strange, quiet orphanage built for one purpose, to raise children brilliant enough to inherit his name, 2 boys grew up in his shadow. Both shaped to become the next great detective. Both certain, in their own way, that they were the one who deserved it. And they could not possibly be more different from each other, or from the gentle, sleepless genius who made them. Nier is the one who thinks the way Elle thought, calm to the point of being unsettling. A pale, still young man who sits on the floor building towers out of dice and lining up toy soldiers while he quietly takes apart the most powerful person on Earth. He feels almost nothing, shows almost nothing, and misses almost nothing. Where Light performs and postures and needs to be seen, Nier simply watches, patient as still water, certain that if he thinks long enough and waits long enough, the truth will float to the surface on its own. Mello is the opposite in every way that matters. All fire, all hunger, all barely contained rage of being told to wait his turn behind someone he refuses to stand behind. He won't play it clean. He'll work with criminals. He'll scar his own face and burn down half the board if burning it down is what winning costs him. Nier has Elle's mind. Mello has Elle's appetite, the part of the detective that needed to win so badly it ached. And the cruel joke of it is that the 2 of them hate each other almost as much as they hate Kira. They are 2 halves of the same dead man, coming for Light from opposite directions at once. And they don't even realize that together they are the one thing he was never able to beat. Mello moves first, and he moves like a wildfire. He gets his hands on a piece of America's criminal underworld, builds himself a small army of killers, and goes straight for the throat. He wants a notebook, the real, physical source of Kira's power. And to force it out into the open, he reaches for the one pressure point that can make the calm, controlled Kira finally flinch. Light's family. Mello's people take Sayu, Light's younger sister, a sweet, ordinary girl who has nothing to do with any of this, snatched and held in a foreign country as a single chip in a game she can't even see. And the price for her safe return is a death note. The Yagami family and the Japanese task force are forced into an impossible corner. They are holding a piece of the most dangerous object on Earth, and a daughter's life is sitting on the other side of the scale. So Soichiro Yagami goes himself. Of course he does. The honest cop who has given his entire life to the law, who has spent years hunting Kira while his own son slept just down the hall. He walks straight into the enemy's stronghold to bring his daughter home. And he makes the deal that costs the most. He trades away half of his own remaining life for the Shinigami eyes, so he can see his enemies' true names and break the standoff. He gives up his own years without hesitating for even a second, because that is the kind of man he has always been, the kind who quietly pays the price himself so that no one else has to. And it kills him. The raid turns, the situation collapses, and Soichiro is shot. He dies in a hospital bed, surrounded by the men of his task force. He dies having done the right thing, for the right reasons, all the way to the very end. And he dies without ever knowing the truth, without ever learning that the killer he gave everything to catch was the boy he raised, the son he was proudest of in all the world, standing right there at his bedside. His last thoughts are of a light who never really existed. A good son, an innocent boy. He dies still believing in him. And here is the moment that tells you exactly how far gone Light already is. He feels the loss. Somewhere deep in him, a flicker of something. But watch closely, because it isn't only grief. Part of what moves through Light, standing over his dying father, is relief. Relief that the old man slipped away without ever turning those eyes on him, without ever seeing his name, without ever knowing what his son had become. The notebook has been quietly sending Light a bill this whole time. Name by name, person by person, it has been collecting from everyone who ever loved him. And when it finally comes to take his own father, the god of the new world barely breaks his stride. With Soichiro gone, Light tightens his grip on the world even further. A notebook still needs hands to do its work, so he gathers his instruments. There is Takada, a beautiful and ambitious television anchor, who becomes the public face and voice of Kira, the woman who tells the world its gods will out loud. And there is Mikami, a prosecutor who worshipped Kira long before he ever met him, a man whose idea of justice is even more rigid and merciless than Light's own. Mikami becomes Light's hidden hand, the one who does the actual killing now, fanatically, precisely, on a perfect schedule. Light has grown so powerful that he no longer even needs to lift the pen himself. And still it's hollow. That's what the story keeps quietly showing you, frame after frame. Light sits at the very top of a world that prays to him, with devoted followers who would die at a word, and the satisfaction never comes. He's still chasing the feeling he had when El was alive. The feeling of being truly seen, of being matched, of being challenged by someone who could actually keep up. And he is never, ever going to feel it again. He killed the one and only cure for his own emptiness. Now he's just a god running out the clock, waiting for an opponent worthy of the name. Nier gives him one. Slowly, patiently, bloodlessly. Nier builds his own small, fiercely loyal team. He refuses to trust the compromised Japanese task force. And he works his way, one careful piece at a time, toward the exact same impossible conclusion that El reached and died for years before. The man leading the hunt for Kira is Kira. Nier doesn't rush it. He doesn't gamble the reckless way Mello does. He simply keeps narrowing the world, quietly, calmly, until there is only one place left for the truth to hide. And then he builds a trap with no way out. And it's Mello, of all people, who lights the final fuse. The reckless one, the brother who could never stand to wait his turn. In one last desperate gamble, Mello kidnaps Takada, Kira's own chosen voice, and drags the whole secret war straight out into the open. He knows what it will probably cost him. He does it anyway. That was always who Mello was. The one willing to burn himself to ash for a single inch of ground that Nier was too careful to take. And it kills him. Mello dies the way he lived, alone, at full speed, having thrown everything he had at a target far bigger than himself. But here is the cruel, beautiful truth of it. That reckless, suicidal move is exactly the push the careful, patient Nier needed. Mello forces Light's hand. He shakes loose the one mistake that the calm, bloodless half of El could never have provoked on his own. The two pieces of the dead detective, the fire and the ice, the brothers who hated each other right to the end, finish the job together. And neither of them ever gets to know it. Mello dies handing Nier the win. And Light, who was so sure he'd buried El in the ground years ago, never once realizes he's been losing, this whole time, to a dead man's two sons. It all comes down, in the end, to a meeting in an abandoned warehouse. Nier arranges the final confrontation himself. Kira and his task force on one side, Nier and his people on the other. and a notebook waiting in the middle that everyone in that room believes will end the whole thing, once and for all. Light walks in calm, because Light always has a plan, and this time he is certain his plan is perfect. He has arranged for Mikami, his hidden hand, to be watching from the shadows, ready to write down every single name in that room the instant the meeting begins. In Light's mind, he has already won. He's simply waiting for the bodies to start dropping. He's standing in a room full of people who are about to die, and there is no version of this moment he can even imagine where he loses. And then the names don't die. The 40 seconds pass, and everyone in the room is still breathing, because Nier saw all of it coming from a very long way off. Before this room, before this day, Nier had Mikami quietly watched, his real notebook found, and its pages secretly swapped for fakes. Every name Mikami wrote in perfect, fanatical faith was written into a notebook that does absolutely nothing. The trap Light built so carefully, the one that was meant to wipe out everyone who ever doubted him, closes instead around Light's own throat. And in front of every single person in that warehouse, slowly, the mask he has worn for all these years finally comes apart. Watch what happens to him then, because it's the entire story crushed down into a few unbearable seconds. The calm cracks first, then it shatters completely. The reasonable voice, the noble speeches, the serene God of a better world, all of it falls away at once. And what's left underneath is something small and cornered and screaming. He admits it, all of it. He laughs and rages and insists he's right, insists he's justice, insists the whole world will fall apart without him there to guide it. The men who trusted him, who worked beside him for years and called him a friend, stand frozen in pure horror as they finally see the thing that was wearing their colleague's face. And one of them can't bear it. Matsuda, the youngest, the most idealistic, the one who looked up to Light more than anyone else, who wanted so badly to keep believing in him. Matsuda is the one who breaks. He draws his gun and he fires. Not a clean execution, not cold, righteous justice. Heartbreak, pulling the trigger again and again, putting bullets into the man he admired most because the truth is simply too heavy to hold any other way. The believer shoots his God, and he's crying the whole time he does it. And then Light runs, bleeding, broken, stripped of every last thing he ever built. The God of the new world drags himself out of that warehouse and into the dark. Like the frightened, cornered criminal he always swore he was so far above. He's begging now, begging Ryuk to write the names, to save him, to do the one thing that might still turn all of this around. Ryuk, who has floated silently behind him since the very first night, who ate his apples and answered his questions and offered nothing else, year after year after year. And Ryuk just looks down at him. Remember the promise from that very first night. When it's all over, the one who writes your name will be me. Ryuk was never Light's partner. He was never on anyone's side at all. He was bored, and Light was the most entertaining thing he'd stumbled across in centuries. And now, finally, the show is ending. So Ryuk opens his own notebook, and without a single flicker of feeling, he writes the name. Light Yagami. And Light dies the way it all began. Alone. Abandoned by the very world that once screamed his name to the sky. He stumbles into an empty building as his heart begins to fail. And in his last moments he sees them all, every person he sacrificed to climb this high, watching him go. He dies on a cold floor in the dark. The exact same death he handed out to every nameless criminal whose name he ever wrote. No throne, no worshippers, no God. Just a clever boy who threw away his entire soul for a world that forgot his name before his body was even cold. Here's what the story leaves in your hands when it's over. Light Yagami was not a monster who fell out of the sky fully formed. He was, in the beginning, the best of us. A brilliant, capable, talented young man who genuinely wanted the world to be better than it was. And that is exactly the thing that makes him so terrifying to sit with. The notebook didn't corrupt a villain. There was no villain to corrupt. It corrupted a hero. Slowly. Reasonably. One justified murder at a time. Each one a little easier than the last. Until the person who set out to save everyone became the single thing that everyone needed saving from. And he never once believed he was the bad guy. Death Note never answers it for you. It refuses to. It just hands you the notebook, lets you feel how perfectly reasonable that very first name would be to write. the worst of the worst, a man no one would miss. And then it trusts you to understand exactly why Light said yes. Because the most honest and the most frightening thing this story ever tells you is also the simplest. Put yourself in his place. Certain you were right. Holding the power to fix everything wrong with the world, resting in a single notebook, asking only for a name. Are you really so sure? You would close the book? If you felt something, let it show. Comment, like, and share this with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe so you never miss the next story. This was told by Anime. I'll see you at the next one.